I share this because there's so many people who are afraid to voice that they need help. And I know personally how hard it is to not just voice it, but when you voice it, to be told no.
I'd like to welcome Justin Volpe to our meeting, to our conversation. He was recently a part of a documentary that was called The Definition of Insanity on public television that has pretty much gotten national attention.
So I guess just even like on a very basic level, how did you get involved in the definition of insanity?
Well, the documentary was recorded over the last couple of years, but the Miami-Dade County Jail Diversion Program came into existence in early 2000s that helped divert people in Miami-Dade County with serious mental health problems out of the criminal justice system and get them treatment into the community instead of doing time in jail where they would get worse. And in 2007, I was one of these people that was incarcerated with a serious mental health issue and got diversion from jail and got engaged into treatment in the community. After I completed treatment, I was offered a job there, and I've been employed there ever since as a certified recovery peer specialist. That is somebody that has a serious mental health or substance abuse issue, suffered trauma. There's different certifications for peer specialists, veterans as well. But so I use my lived experience in the community to help people get out of jail and to engage them in treatment so they don't have to go back to jail. I do a lot of consulting work too. Right now it's definitely via computer, but you know, I've traveled a good part of the country sharing my recovery story, sharing what this program does for people here in Miami-Dade County and the importance of treating people with severe mental health issues as regular people. And so that's kind of how it all got started. But the program was around before me, and I'm just happy to be a part of its success now.
Just right away, the first thing I want to say is like this is an area that's very personal for me too. As a person with mental health, right before I was diagnosed, I was always having run-ins with the authority, and through either luck or privilege or talking my way out of it, I was able to have issues expunged or, you know, through other like community service programs, like redirected. But before I knew that it was because of a mental health illness, I didn't realize why I was acting the way I was acting. And I always think back on, had I not been so fortunate or had things turned out a little bit differently, how quickly that could have led into a cycle of being in and out of the system. And without programs like yours, people with mental illness get caught. Some people don't even know, right, that they have mental health issues.
Right. Well, nationally, it's a huge problem, and that honestly, out of the percentage of people we serve, most of our clients haven't been charged anything, so that way they drop the charges. But nationally,
Right.
There's a huge issue with the prison system, with people of color with serious mental health issues that are picking up a lot of small felonies for their drug addiction, for their trauma, and they're ending up cycling in the system. And without a program like this in place, basically you're let out of prison with 3 days or 7 days supply of medication, and you're on probation, and they say good luck. They give you a bus ticket and it's good luck. And we basically set people up for failure in the system. And it's nice to be a part of at least trying, because I'm not going to pretend like our program is magical, because as you know, as somebody in recovery, you have to do the work as well. And that when, you know, people are pushing you from the court or an authoritative standpoint, it's not always the most receptive. But that's where peer engagement comes in, to say that, you know, we don't care what you do with your life, but you're not going to do anything if you're back in jail or prison. So.
And Justin, I have a question for you. When you're describing this program, is it a program that came from somewhere else? Is it a program that's being done in other parts of the country? Is it only in Miami? Because it sounds like such an amazing program to be able to catch people, and it's part of, wouldn't this help? And is it out there?
Yeah, well, you know, Broward County, which is a little north of us, Robert, was the first mental health court in the nation. I couldn't tell you the exact date, maybe 25 years ago, but they were post-adjudicatory. So basically everybody in Broward's mental health court has already been convicted, and that if they don't do the treatment, they will go to prison. So that's the difference between pre-adjudicatory and post-adjudicatory, that you've been convicted already. There's a lot of these programs across the country. They're trying to make more of a national model, a more unified model. There's the people that have seen the documentary, people have seen Judge Leifman, the head of our program, share and speak across the country, that started this program back in 2001. And the thing is that people identify this issue in their communities nationwide. And you would think it would just be the large cities we're talking about, LA, Chicago, New York, Miami, but some of these more rural communities too, there's really a lack of resources. And
there could be a hospital that's like an hour away from you to get help, versus like the major cities that have more access.
Yeah. Can you imagine if you had, and then you're poor, you're a person of poverty, you don't have a car. How are you going to get to an outpatient mental health appointment? And there's no buses out in the country, right? Yeah. I mean, it's nearly impossible.
I'm speaking as somebody who has access, right? Or let's say I'm already at the step, let's say at this point, I'm at the step where I already want to help myself. And I have the means to do so. Even at those junctures, there are still roadblocks. It's difficult to get healthcare. It's difficult to get the right psychiatrist. It's difficult to get your medications refilled. It's difficult to find the right therapist. It's difficult to have all of these things in place. So even when you have the means, the system, it feels like it's still stacked up against you. So it's just very frustrating situation.
No, it's difficult to navigate for somebody that's in their right mind. When you're not in your right mind, it would be nearly impossible. You have to go to your follow-up appointment. You have to get this prescription, get it to the pharmacy, make sure the pharmacy takes your insurance, make sure you get the copay. If they don't have it, then you have to have a phone for them to call you to do all this, because not everybody has access to a phone to have these capabilities. And then you have to go back, pick up the medicine, reschedule your next appointment. Transportation there, like we just said, not everybody lives in a big city. Even if people that live in a big city, it may be very difficult to navigate the buses and trains, because, for a regular person on a good day that's not familiar with the area, but for somebody that's hearing voices or seeing things or responding,
it's near impossible.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
Actually, no, I've been there. So when I was laid off during the pandemic, I lost my health insurance and I couldn't get a refill on one of my medications. So not only was my mental illness not being treated, I was also experiencing withdrawals. I didn't realize I was going through withdrawal because no one had ever educated me on it. It was just a medication I've been on since I was 22. And I just started feeling very sick. I couldn't get out of bed. I started hallucinating. I thought people's hair was green. I couldn't get off of the couch, like the gravity. And I live alone in my apartment. Finally, I messaged my friend, like, I get the energy. I have a phone, so there's a privilege right there, because I couldn't get to a doctor. I couldn't get to a psychiatrist. And it was only because that friend came over to my house, found the resources for me, got me to an outpatient center, did all of the logistics, drove me. And if it was not for that person, I couldn't have navigated that myself. I would have died on that couch, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you even put this to work? I mean, obviously you've got that privilege that Dee's talking about, but then drop it however many steps you want to drop that to where you have somebody that's coming out of prison or coming out of a holding cell and they've got schizophrenia, let's say. And how have you made it work? Because I know that the program's been successful because I've seen the video. How have you made it work?
It takes a village. It takes a village. It takes everybody from every different angle. One of the common things is people get hospitalized and get changed medications. It takes, a whole team to provide this information, to care, go above and beyond to help. I'm here with this person in a outpatient clinic. I know it's going to be an all-day process. I'll bring some snacks with me. I'll even bring a couple cigarettes because I know that person's going to want to smoke a cigarette, and that's a reason that they could walk off. These are the little things that, would turn somebody away from an appointment. And, the financial aspect on as far as providers are not paid enough. Treatment care providers, I'm talking about the frontline staff. They're underpaid. They're overwhelmed. They have swarms of people come in every day. Everybody is unstable that they see. And this affects you. And this is where trauma comes into play. Not only does a large percentage of people with serious mental health issues have experienced some sort of trauma, but the healthcare workers experience this secondhand trauma from being a part of the system. In police too, paramedics, all people that are involved in serious stressful situation, it can rub off on you over time. And to say it's not means you're not human. It's got to be from a community approach. It's got to be from a healing perspective for the whole community.
When you say the whole community, do you literally mean everybody in the community actually start to care about the issue?
Yeah, great question. Who are you talking about?
That would be ideal, but I'm not going to push my luck. What if we what if we just started more education? In Miami we have NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness. I'm sure they're in North Jersey too. It's a national organization, but we had more federal funding for education of families, education of local resources. And then these people of local resources, we're talking about community healing, and it's just, why don't we educate people? Why don't we educate the police? In Miami, we have a CIT program, which stands for Crisis Intervention Team, where, we have over 7,500 officers trained in Miami-Dade County that receive a 40-hour class on crisis intervention, so they can de-escalate people and get them to the hospital instead of, escalating them and having them cause crime and chaos. And, we've seen police injuries go down. We've seen injuries to people with serious mental illness go down. And we've seen out of, I have to give you the exact numbers and I can get it to you, but there was something like 95,000 calls over the last 6 or 8 years between Miami-Dade County and City of Miami, 2 precincts out of 36 precincts in Miami. And there was 152 arrests out of close to 100,000 calls. So, yeah.
Fascinating. This is fascinating. How do you feel about the de-escalation part that you were talking about? Because that's been such a big topic of discussion in the past few months. The idea that the police needs to learn how to de-escalate. How would you characterize this 40-hour class that you're talking about? The Miami-Dade County Police have to go through this 40-hour class. How much would you say that has helped? Is that where you tied that into the calls that went down?
When this training was introduced in Miami 20 years ago, there was still cops from the 80s, from the 70s and 80s that were here in Miami. And, Robert, you grew up during that time, and it was a different time for
vicious,
right? Vicious. All around. So there was a real different perspective on drugs and mental illness and hard on crime, tough on crime, the Reagan administration, things like that. And there was a lot of violence and there was a lot of serious problems, So when they brought in the CIT 20 years ago, the CIT instructor actually used to leave in tears because these cops used to just laugh at her. I don't want to hear this touchy-feely stuff. But what we've seen, is a different generation of police, and those police have retired, and that their kids and the younger generation has more compassion. And it just goes to the sense that, in different cities across the country, that there's mental health clinicians going out with police to evaluate people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because, that's really whose hands this should be in, is treatment providers. Yeah. I often say that I wish, I didn't have a job. What if the court didn't have to catch these people? What if they didn't have to be arrested? What if they could just mainstream, get help right off the street? And there'd be funding for treatment centers. We know that 1 in 5 people across a lifetime can experience mental health issues. Maybe somebody's wife just divorced them. Maybe they got drunk. Maybe something happened. And we got to look at that instead of a privilege point, that shouldn't there be another avenue for somebody that's in an already over-incarcerated justice system where people are proven not to get better, but to get worse. And in fact, the more instances you have of incarceration, the harder it is to get a job, the the harder it is to pay your rent, support your family, and to
get help.
reintegrate into the society. You know, why can't there be some kind of unified mental health system along with the criminal justice system, along with if somebody is diagnosed or something happens by the age? You know, we really need to be identifying people in schools. We really need to be identifying this early and getting people the help they need so they don't cycle into jail, you know, into juvenile justices and whatnot, because this is where it starts. Everybody was a child once, you know, and we need to start young and start identifying them in schools and go from there.
Justin, man, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this.
Thank you so much.
So I just want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for sharing this story, and hopefully we'll be able to talk to you again.
That'd be great.
Bring you back and have more conversations about other things.